What's up, everybody on the podcast now? I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about Marvel versus DC games. So this was actually a topic posed to me on my Saturday podcast. I do a weekly podcast, just started it recently, and I have a lot of fun there, and you guys can ask any questions or any topics you want, through that show, and I'll answer them. And one of the topics I got was talking about Marvel versus DC games. So I discussed this on the show, and I thought, well, you know what? I have maybe a little bit more to say. I feel like maybe I could say this or that a little bit differently because it was kind of spontaneous in that video. I guess it's still spontaneous here, but I want to talk about it in its own video. Okay, now, I'm not here, to say that you're a loser if you like one or the other, or to say you need to like both or you need to like only one. You make your opinions and your thoughts are your own. You know what I mean? I'm not here to change your mind. I'm just here to tell you kind of what I think about the entire thing, Marvel versus DC games. So I guess, in terms of like who's better, I do have an opinion on that. I also have an opinion on the strategies, and I want to start there. So basically what we have here, I do think it's fair to compare them because they're two proper, they're two, things that control, DC and Marvel. They control a lot of stuff, and there's a lot of potential for some really incredible games, some of which we've gotten, some of which we haven't. But I've said this before, I really love Marvel's strategy right now. I don't think it's a recipe to have every game be successful. I think it's a recipe to get as many games out there in different developers' hands, different kinds of games, and see what sticks. And again, like, it's not a 100% success strategy. Not every game that comes out is going to be amazing, but it always has reminded me of Star Wars in like the early 2000s. Remember, they did that before it got caught up in just EA, and it was an incredible, in my opinion, an incredible time to be a Star Wars fan, because you'd have, within like a 3, 4, 5 year span, you'd have like 15 Star Wars. It was literally, you'd have like 3 a year at least. It was insane. And again, now, were all of them good? No, there were definitely some bad ones, but we got games like The Force Unleashed during that stretch. We got the Battlefront games. We had Republic Command. It's a little bit earlier, but you had Star Wars Episode 3, the movie tie-in game, which actually was phenomenal. It's one of my favorite Star Wars games out there. So you had just so much creativity and I guess creative freedom to do what you wanted, and that's really what I believe. Now, I'm not 100% sure, but that's what I believe Marvel is kind of going for. Is Avengers for everybody? No. Is it that great of a game? In my opinion, I don't like it very much, but it definitely serves its purpose in terms of what they were trying to do with it. Guardians of the Galaxy, Spider-Man, Wolverine, Midnight Suns. There's probably a Daredevil game. And it's probably not from Insomniac, right? There's a lot of different stuff that Marvel is doing that I really like. Again, not all of them are gonna hit. Avengers, I played it for like a month straight. I don't like it. I guess I don't downright hate it. It's somewhere, I guess, in between. I guess maybe probably on the lower end. I know there's a lot of people that like the game. I know there's a lot of people that don't like the game. Midnight Suns, I'm excited for it, but I know a lot of people just downright hate it and are just not even gonna try it, which is completely fair, because you know what? Midnight Suns is, you watch the gameplay or you see that game, it's not for everybody. You know what I mean? You have to like that kind of stuff in order to like it, and that's great. On the DC side, it gets a little bit more depressing, but again, this is not me like putting them down or me saying how awful they are. I just think that the key strategy, what I just said, that to me is the biggest thing that I just think Marvel has and DC is lacking, and has always lacked, and probably always will lack for whatever reason. It's really them being tied up in WB Games, which I guess is fine on its own, but then WB Games not really doing much with it, right? When you have WB Montreal and Rocksteady being your primary two, now NetherRealm for Injustice 1 and 2, but they probably aren't making 3 anytime soon. Rocksteady, it's now 6 years since Arkham Knight. WB Montreal, we are now, year 8 since Arkham. Now, we know what they're making now, but I guess, statistically, it's been 6 years since the last Arkham game, and it's been 8 years, or I guess the last game from Rocksteady, and it's been 8 years since the last game from WB Montreal. So, you literally have nothing. And that, to me, is the biggest problem. It's not even the quality, because when you talk about the quality, I guess right now, you're comparing Avengers, you're comparing Spider-Man 1 and Miles, right? I'm pretty sure that's it. You're comparing them to the Arkham franchise. And Like, Spider-Man holds up pretty well to the Arkham franchise. It's very much, it learned from it. It took a lot of the mechanics from it. Like, it very much, I don't think, would have existed without the Arkham game. I don't know if that gives the Arkham games a leg up. I'm just, like, that's just factually what the case is. But, like, you compare Avengers or, stuff like that. If you compare that to Arkham, I mean, I think Arkham kills it. You know what I mean? So, it's tough. But, like, again, Marvel is about it. I don't want to say it's more about, quantity than quality, because that's also not really true. Again, like, Midnight Suns looks good for the kind of game it is. Avengers, I don't really think it did the live service, kind of keeping the game around forever like it wanted to. I don't think it really built it well. So I would say the quality there was pretty low. Spider-Man, obviously, the quality is very, very high. But the Arkham games, the quality is very high. It's just simply they don't have enough. There's so much. You look at Marvel and you say, okay, well, I mean, you could, like, even like a couple months ago, Wolverine is a candidate for a game. Now, obviously, that's happening, but you think like Wolverine, Daredevil. You could think like Fantastic Four. Like, you can think all of these things that probably are going to happen. And they can happen because Marvel's just handing them out. Now, again, I guess, are you guaranteed to get a good product? No. But yet again, are we guaranteed to get a good product for DC? They only have a couple teams, Rocksteady, Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League. I'm not down on it. I'm not saying it's going to be horrible, but like, there are some very big concerns of the kind of game that it is. And again, it's been so long. Gotham Knights is far from like a guarantee that that game's going to be great. You know what I mean? The WB Montreal doesn't have the greatest track record of all time. So like, these are just things, they're just observations. I think like Monolith would be cool to do some sort of superhero game, but like they do Middle Earth. Obviously you have TT Games, which does the Lego stuff. Like, they can do Lego. I mean, do you count those Lego DC games? I guess you can, because they do serve a purpose. And I would put that right along what I'm saying with Marvel. So I guess I would consider any, a DC Lego game that's come out, I would consider that part of the portfolio. I just think you could do more. You know what I mean? Obviously Superman is such an alluring thing that's been talked about forever, but you have literally the entire Justice League. Plus, I guess you have the Justice League. So Justice League could have matched Avengers. Now you're putting them in Suicide Squad, but you could do a Wonder Woman game, Superman game. You can go into like the Arrowverse. You could do like Green Arrow. You could do Teen Titans, which would very much match like a Fantastic Four, or X-Men from like a Marvel. I mean, there is a lot you can do. There's no doubt about it. I mean, the potential for both is enormous. It's just one is doing stuff with it and one isn't, and I don't even necessarily blame, I don't blame the intellectual properties of DC. Technically, they can't think on their own and they can't act on their own, right? You need ownership of them. It's just the way that it is, attached to one publisher. Marvel is not attached to one publisher, and I think that really, as of right now, really helps them. Whereas DC, I think if things start to dissolve, if they do start handing out, which it could happen, right? If they start handing out licenses, give some to Microsoft, give some to Sony, give some to, I was gonna say like EA, Ubisoft, like just let, even like Ubisoft, making like the Star Wars game, and Star Wars is going back to that, right? Like Quantic Dream is probably making a Star Wars game. Like Star Wars is going back to what they used to do. Marvel is doing what Star Wars used to do. It's how you get the better products, just kind of handing them out and letting these talents that want to do something with it do it. I guarantee you there is a lot of people, there are a lot of teams, and I mean, yes, we've heard about like the canceled Superman games and stuff like that. Again, like I don't count them because they didn't actually happen. You know what I mean? They didn't release. But I mean, I am sure if you polled every studio in the world, you'd find plenty. You'd probably find hundreds that would want to do a DC game. You'd probably find publishers that'd be more than happy to take a license and give it to a team. Like that, I'm sure that exists, but it just doesn't happen. And that's, I think, the biggest. I mean, that's pretty much the entire fundamental idea of my discussion of Marvel versus DC. It really comes down to DC needs to do that. It needs to just hand them out. And I just don't think, I don't know contracts. I don't know how these properties work like 100%. So I don't know ground level. But I mean, if I were them, that's what I would do. I'd find a way in my contracts of whatever I'm limited to, I would try to make that work. So, I don't want to say like win or loser, because I hate like console wars. I hate battles like this because it just brings out the worst in people like in comments. So try to keep it civil. But I mean, in terms of who's doing it better, it's got to be Marvel. You know what I mean? In terms of the quality games, I would maybe still give it to DC. I love the Arkham games a lot. I think Spider-Man probably matches a couple of them, but I mean, I guess there's more of the Arkham games, so maybe that gives it a leg up. I think when Spider-Man 2 comes out, I think when Midnight Suns comes out, I think when Guardians. Now again, like some of these could be very bad. Like Guardians is not guaranteed to be good. Midnight Suns may not be good. Like it's definitely possible that you have less of a success. Like, you know, these games come out for Marvel, and you may have 2 out of 7 or 2 out of 8 that are good or amazing, right? That's not a very high percentage, whereas, you know, for DC, you know, maybe you only have 3, 4, 5, but all of them are great. You know what I mean? So it's a higher percentage for DC, but there's more of them for Marvel. So it's actually more of like a personal taste there, but at the same time, I do just think Marvel's doing it better because, like, you just fantasize, oh, I want this kind of superhero game in a Marvel property. I mean, you could probably get it. You know what I mean? Like, it's likely or it's possible that it could happen, whereas we can come up with, and we used to do that, right? Again, as I've said, like Wonder Woman, Flash, Aquaman, like, they could all work, but, like, who are you going to make? Who are you going to get to make them? Like, do we have to wait 30 years, one every decade, in order to get them all 3 of them? Like, that's the situation, and that's what I would say really hurts DC. So let me know what you guys think about all this in the comments below. Make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel. Hit the bell icon so you guys know when all these videos go up. Like I said, this was a topic posed to me in my podcast. You guys can definitely do the same thing, and I'll start to try to do a little bit more of this stuff as well. If there's a topic I really like, I can make it its own kind of spin-off video, or I could take a segment from the podcast and just make it a video. So keep an eye out on that Saturday podcast. It's called the Save Point Podcast. Again, if you want to follow me on Twitter or subscribe to our second channel or support us on Patreon or YouTube memberships, links are in the description below. Thank you for watching, guys, and I hope to see you all on the next video.